Good afternoon, everyone. I am Dr. Ayodele Shitu of the ARUA Center for Unemployment and Skills Development, University of Lagos. On behalf of the director, I want to welcome each and every one of us to this event. The World Youth Skills Day provides a unique opportunity for us to acknowledge and celebrate the significance of providing young people with requisite skills for employment, decent work opportunities, and entrepreneurship. This year's edition comes up at a time when the coronavirus pandemic has caused unprecedented disruptions across educational and training sectors, with rising estimated global full-time job loss running into at least 195 million. Within the context of the African youth, it is believed that more than 250 million of young people will be worse hit. Besides that, it is expected that the population of young people in Africa will rise to about approximately 321 million by the year 2030. And this calls for the need to complement improvement in the curricula in both education and training sectors to directly respond to the changing market demand for labor. In view of these facts, the ARUA Center for Excellence in Unemployment and Skills Development Center was established with a view to collaborating, doing research, and developing innovative solutions to youth unemployment challenges in Africa. Today, this program is proudly sponsored by the ARUA UKRI for the purpose of recognizing skills development among African youths in general. And the theme of today's event is Resilient African Youth and Tomorrow's World of Work: What employability and entrepreneurial skills will be required. At this juncture, I want to recognize and appreciate our sponsors, the ARUA UKRI, for giving us the opportunity to host this program and to expose the upcoming African youths to the requisite skills that they will require to navigate the world of work in the future. For the purpose of today's webinar, we have invited eminent personalities, scholars, industrialists, and professionals in their various fields of endeavor. First, I would like to recognize Professor Tony Balletti. Professor Tony is a faculty member at the Carleton University, Ottawa, Canada, with 41 years of experience. He is an academic, an entrepreneur, an author, and an award-winning scholar. In today's webinar, Professor Balletti will discuss exploring technopreneurship opportunities for African youth.
We also have with us today Professor Dimi Doreska, a certified global business professional, an international business specialist and consultant, and an international trainer in entrepreneurship. He's the director of the Institute of International Business, the academic director of Mandela Washington Fellowship Program, and a lecturer in international business and entrepreneurship at the University of Iowa, USA, with no less than 20 years experience. He's widely traveled promoting entrepreneurship training among faculty members and students of universities across the Middle East, Asia, Sub-Saharan Africa, and Caribbean. In today's webinar, he will be talking about the soft skills that will matter for African youths in tomorrow's world of work. Also with us is Mrs. Toki Mabogunje, the president of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry. She's a trained lawyer, a successful global business consultant with 37 years of experience, and an active stakeholder of business organizations of the organized private sector in Nigeria. She is presently a multi-award winner who sits on the board of several organizations locally and abroad. She's a volunteer mentor to several young aspiring entrepreneurs on diverse platforms, including Women in Successful Careers, Idea Builders, Faith Foundation, Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Today, her focus will be on building resilience for tomorrow's job disruptions. What are the options for the African youths? Also with us today is Dr. Sunday Abayomi Adebisi, an associate professor and the director of the Entrepreneurship and Skills Development Center and the African Research Universities Alliance Center of Excellence for Unemployment and Skills Development at the University of Lagos. He is an entrepreneurship education champion and has successfully developed innovative entrepreneurship programs for both staff and students at the university. Bringing his vast industry experience to bear, he has attracted global firms into the University of Lagos entrepreneurship ecosystem with credible partnership for the identification, nurturing, and development of university-based startups by students and staff. He's an award-winning scholar of international repute, including the International Award of the EFMD 2016 Best African Case in Berlin, Germany. He's also a globally accomplished author. His passion is to see to it that Africa replicates the Silicon Valley of America to engender sporadic innovation and entrepreneurship development for poverty eradication and economic self-sufficiency for the African youth. Today, his focus will be on rethinking university entrepreneurial ecosystem for job creation, improved students' preparedness for tomorrow's world of work. We also have with us today Dr. Priscilla Baffo. Just a second. She is a UK-trained economist. She's a senior lecturer at the Department of Economics, University of Ghana, and shares affiliations with notable continental research institutions. She is a passionate researcher of education, labor market, and gender inequality issues in international trade and development economics. Our talk in this webinar is on the severity of youth unemployment in Africa in the COVID-19 era. What does it hold? Also with us today is Professor Kev Govinda, a professor of applied mathematics at the University of KwaZulu-Natal with 25 years of teaching and research experience. He is an innovator with uncommon passion for developing innovative tools for evaluating the effectiveness of diversity initiatives. He is the current leader of the Diversity, Inclusivity, and Equity Committee of the Astrophysics Research Center and the acting assistant dean of the University of Research at UKZN. Most recently, he was appointed as the South African co-focal spoke lead of the ARUA Center of Excellence for Unemployment and Skill Development. His focus in today's webinar is on required adaptation strategies to job disruption in tomorrow's world of work amidst growing automation. Also with us today is Dr. Akanimo Odon, a United Kingdom trained environmental management expert who specializes in cross-border education, innovations in research, and has acquired experience in navigating, developing, and managing relationships between academia, government, and industry in Africa for economic viability, research impact, and student employability. He has been an Africa strategy advisor for a number of higher institutions of learning in the UK and national institutions in Tanzania and Kenya. He has won in excess of £40 million for over 20 African research partners and facilitated more than 50 Africa-focused international workshops and conferences. He shall be speaking on global citizenship and the changing workplace, the coping strategies for African youth. Also with us today is Dr. Joy Kiru, a senior lecturer at the School of Economics, University of Nairobi, Kenya, an expert on impact evaluations. She's an award-winning scholar who is passionate about research in microfinance, entrepreneurship, youth employment, and gender inclusiveness. She's a member of the board of the Mawazu Institute in Kenya. In today's webinar, our talk is on making entrepreneurship a culture for African youth in tackling unemployment occasioned by COVID-19 era. Thank you very much to all the attendees and all the panelists for your presence at this forum. We shall now have presentation of slides. May I invite Professor Tony Baletti for his 5 minutes presentation. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I'm absolutely delighted to be here. Thank you very much for inviting me. I am in Ottawa, in Canada. I've been in various places in Africa, and I have lots of ties into Nigeria. Today, I'm going to talk about 4 things, and I only have 5 minutes, so I am going to go very quickly, but the slides are going to be available to you. I'm going to talk about salient trends, and these are trends that I think are going to affect all of us, and I picked 6 of those. And then I kind of answer the question, given that these trends would happen, and of course I'm not a futurist, but this is my view, what are the kind of jobs that we need the most? And what is the impact on new venture creation of these trends? And then I'm going to end up talking about youth skills. So in terms of the trends that I see as being quite salient after this post-epidemic era that the global world has been affected by, I see a lot of online cross-border trading investment. I see cross-border e-commerce as being the future of e-commerce. So there's a lot of drivers, there's a lot of reasons why this is going to be growing very, very quickly, even though e-commerce is not. I think that cross-border trading investment is going to increase significantly over time. I think that everybody who has a job now, that 70% of that job or more could be automated, will be probably replaced by automation, whether it's a robot or something else. So anybody out there, there'll be a major drive to automate things. We'll see a lot more people working from home. We're going to have to get used to that. That presents many challenges to people, particularly people who are taking care of young kids. It's not an easy thing to do, but I think that we're going to see a lot more of that. As a result, we're going to see more freelancers and gig workers. In the past, these gig workers were people who were doing kind of low-level jobs. I think that that's going to change. We're going to see a lot more professionals that are going to be freelancing their services through contracts that are being executed in platforms around the world. That means that people in Lagos will be able to do managerial jobs in other parts of the world via smart contracts. I think that the sharing economy is going to be a lot more important to all of us globally. The sharing economy, of course, is the people collaborating to produce goods and services that they can all use. There's a lot more platforms coming about that are trying to do this, and the growth of these platforms has been absolutely exponential. And I think that one of the big results of this pandemic is that we're going to be a lot more cognizant about our dependency on an environment. And even though the world has been talking about environmental sustainability for a long time, we haven't really done very much. I think that once this is over, one of the major trends that I'm forecasting is the fact that we're going to be a lot more cognizant that our vulnerability as human beings in this environment, and we're going to start investing a lot of energy and time making sure that this environment does not deteriorate as much as we have deteriorated in the recent times. What does that mean in terms of jobs? Well, I see a whole bunch of jobs, both at the technical level, the managerial level, and support level, supply level, consumer level, that deal with alternative energies. There will be a big push around the world to be able to move us away from oil and other sources of energy that we had in the past. The medical profession has received a major boost. Every government around the world that I've been talking to is spending a significant amount of money in thought, worrying about their own medical capabilities, health, personal care. Huge demand for big data analysts. That's going to be very, very important in our lives. That includes statisticians, mathematicians, software developers, analysts, and a whole bunch of other people that are going to be gravitating in the interaction between cloud and your computers. Creative industries are going to take a major boost, and by creative industries we mean a whole variety of things, from the paintings and the entertainment industry and so forth. So I see a major growth in jobs there. I think that there will be a huge boost on personalized and convenient education, training, and other content creation and dissemination mechanisms. Industries that are going to replace many universities and colleges that we have are now being thought about, and they're being implemented, and I see a major change there. And then I see a tremendous amount of jobs being created for the three pillars of the cross-border value chain, one being information, the other one being transformation, and the other one being payments. In terms of new ventures are going to increase in number, but they're going to be different new ventures. I think that the new entrepreneurs are going to be thinking very differently, given the experience that we've had, not just in the pandemic, but in the last 2 or 3 years. I think that the idea that we're going to be creating companies that are not going to last for more than 8 or 10 years, that idea is going to die. It's going to be silly for us to spend all kinds of energy and time creating something that is not going to be there for the long haul. So I'm predicting that we'll see a lot more companies that scale their value, and they're created to scale value as opposed to just develop a prototype and hope for the best. I think that most of our entrepreneurs have now realized that it's not just the customers that they have to keep happy. They need investors. They have to go and be able to talk to investors to raise the money required to satisfy their customers. They need to talk to people in the middlemen, the partnerships, and so forth and so on. So that skill is not there as much as it should be. While we can sell something, we cannot sell to investors, for example, and we cannot sell to investors that we cannot scale quickly. Cross-border e-commerce, as I mentioned before, is going to be absolutely huge around the world. That's going to affect everybody. The three flows that are critical for any business, information and logistics, are going to be very important. Innovation, and then the whole idea about big data. We're going to be relying on big data, and we're going to require a whole bunch of competencies around that. What does that mean for a 16 to 35-year-olds? Well, it means in my head 6 things. We need people who are young that can solve complex problems, not just simple little problems that, you know, somebody goes to a classroom, somebody explains what to do, and you go do it. So I think that we need a lot more in terms of complex problem solving skills to be developed. We need more young people to disturb things, to actually question things. So I have this, you know, older folks like me are asleep, and we need the younger folks to come in and wake us up and say, this is wrong, we need to fix it. We need more people like that. Emotional intelligence, we have a lot of smart kids around the world, but they don't develop their emotional intelligence. So sometimes, as smart as they are, they become liabilities in organizations. So we need to learn a little bit more about emotional intelligence. A stakeholder orientation, where you tell a customer is not what you tell an investor, is not what you tell a supplier, is not what you tell an employee. So you need to develop value propositions that are very different. You're just not managing one value proposition, you're managing multiple value propositions. We all have spouses, we all have kids, we all have grandkids, we have employers, and so forth and so on. We need to maintain those relationships in a balance that it's, while hard to get, it is very, very important. Business development is going to be critical, particularly the business development that depends on things like artificial intelligence, machine learning, topic modeling, all those new technologies that are coming out. They have to be used to, we have to recognize how to harness them to be able to do good for mankind. And the last thing that I have for you is this experiential learning. Education is going to be transformed from older folks going to a classroom and talking to people. That's been kind of what we've done for a long period of time. I don't think smart kids learn that way. I think smart people learn by doing stuff and reflecting on what they've done. And we call that experiential learning. So I have a little test tube here in which it's an experiment and all the insights that come out of doing the experiment. Anyway, thank you very much for having me. I hope that, we'll have a good productive discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tony Baleti. Smart people indeed learn by doing. We sincerely appreciate that. And for all the young ones listening, Professor Tony has just given us 6 important skills that we need to watch out for. One of such is the complex problem-solving skills, emotional intelligence, stakeholders orientation, as well as business development skills, taking advantage of technology, okay? And with that, you could be on your way to becoming a smart person that will be learning by doing. Thank you very much, Professor Baleti. We are very grateful.
Thank you.
Now we're going to call on Mrs. Toki Mabugunje for her presentation. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. And it's my pleasure to be here. Fellow panelists, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it's indeed an honor to be invited as a panelist at this important webinar with a theme that is contemporary and future focused. Lagos and the African Research Universities Alliance, ARUA, for Unemployment and Skills Development for putting this forum focusing on a very critical subject at a time the reality of the future is rapidly evolving. The future of work is being shaped by 2 powerful forces: the growing adoption of artificial intelligence in the workplace and the expansion of the workforce to include both on and off balance sheet talent. The world of work is changing at an amazingly fast pace. Automation, robotics, artificial intelligence are replacing human tasks and jobs, and dynamically also changing the skills that modern organizations need. Interestingly, the rising momentum in digitization is setting out new guidelines for business continuity and the sustained competitiveness in industry. Automation will make a shift as significant as the mechanization in the prior generations. While some jobs will be lost, others will be replaced and new ones will be created. Many of our terrorists are operating a largely static curriculum, and rapidly many of these economies have been growing. An estimated 75 million to 375 million globally may need to change their occupation by 2030 and possibly learn new skills that are relevant for tomorrow's work. Since we know that change is inevitable, let us look at how work will likely change. First, the gig economy will continue to expand, with 75% of Generation Z employees who will be interested in having multiple roles in one place or multiple places of employment. A decentralized workforce. So thanks to mobile technology and internet access, with the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, remote working is becoming the norm in Africa. The next generation of workers may choose to live anywhere for work. Motivation to work and emotional intelligence. People will demand more than a paycheck as motivation to work. Many will want to work for an organization with a vision and a mission that they believe in. Emotional intelligence is actually going to become a very important factor for both employers and employees. Employees will demand care for their well-being from their employers. As has already been said, technology will augment human jobs, and the next generation really have to develop a culture of lifelong learning. Therefore, African youth have quite a number of options to stay resilient, for tomorrow's future of work. The first option is the acquisition of job-neutral soft skills and digital skills. They would need to acquire these skills to boost their employability prospects and ensure that they remain relevant for tomorrow's work. For instance, they need to have cognitive flexibility skills to be able to handle a plethora of opportunities and challenges that come with the future of work. They should be able to adapt to change and conceptualize multiple ideas all at once. Other options available for African youth to acquire these skills is the Technical and Vocational Education Training System, known as TVET. TVETs require comprehensive reforms and increased funding to allow for curriculum reforms, tutor training, and a wide range of digital equipment. Some African governments are already focusing on technical and vocational skill development reforms as the key route to youth employment. Interestingly, more young people are looking up to TVET as the platform to acquire technical and digital skills. African youth also have the opportunity of internships. Internships will enable young individuals to gain firsthand exposure of working in the real world. It allows youth to harness the skill, knowledge, theory, and practice that they learned in school. It provides a good learning curve for young individuals with little or no experience of the professional world. Mentoring is another valuable window to gain experience and exposure in chosen areas of endeavor. In conclusion, the future outlook is one where the African youth have the opportunity to engage in imagination, social and emotional intelligence, and passion. Our youth need to act and engage in lifelong learning so that they are adaptable when changes happen, because change will come and will keep coming. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you very
Moses.
much. Olusegun, over to you.
May I invite Dr. Sunday Adebisi for his presentation at this time?
Thank you very much. Let me share my screen with you now. Thank you very much. It is nice to have all of you here. Thank you for joining us. This is very great today. We thank all the panelists and all the youth that are listening across the world. I am presenting on rethinking university entrepreneurial ecosystems for job creation and improved student preparedness for tomorrow's world of work. For this has become very important today in the university system, and it is very important for us to join the vanguard of creating the skills that will be needed in the that is the fourth industrial revolution. I will start by taking us through the fact that most of the present African university curricula have some peculiar characteristics that may not support solid employability. That is to say, some of these curricula are conventional, they're very old. Some of them are straitjacketed and heavy in theory, and they are not in tune with the present dynamic business environment. And neither are they originally designed for global practices that can support 21st century knowledge economy. And here we are today, and everything has changed. If you look at the picture at the right, side of the slide, you will see, a young man, still trying to walk through the path in the bush, because he has a mission. If you continue to work like this, it's not possible for us to be able to bring on board innovation that can change our world. And all these features have actually contributed to producing youth with little employability skills over the years. Therefore, there is a question that what do we need to do? You will discover that there is need for us to ask ourselves a question: what do we have to do? And what we have to do is very important. That there is the urgent need for us to rethink in having what we call entrepreneurial-oriented university in Africa. And what does this entail? I would say that it entails the university that will be ready to create a culture of supporting the youth so that they can believe in themselves. This is very important. Then we need to have a university that will develop a hub for enterprise creation that will be in tandem with the anticipated characteristics to help youth function seamlessly in the fourth industrial revolution. We have to have a university that will engage forward integration strategy through industry collaboration as to synergize for employability skill. That is to say, the university must now ensure that they integrate so well with the industry to ensure the fact that their students learn even before they leave the university. We are saying that it is equally very important for us today to have a university that drives innovation and technology transfer, whereby the teachers and the students, right from onset, understand that this is the way to go. If you also have a university that will address societal challenges through research and make such available for value creation opportunity. Similarly, we must build a university in Africa now that will encourage and support the triple helix model. That is to say, there must be complete integration among university, private sector, and government so that Africa can be so well developed. The faculty members too must be so trained so that they can change their mindset to have the mindset of enterprise opportunities in their various disciplines. And therefore, if we adopt this, what will be the outcome if we take decision to adopt it? Definitely fantastic outcome is going to come out of this. That is, number one, teachers will become aware of the innovation in their discipline that have enterprise and economic value outside theories. That is, the teachers know for sure that, okay, innovation can come out of this discipline. This discipline is not supposed to just be straight-jacketed. Teachers too can support quality training of their students to achieve high employability skill, which is very, very important. I will say again, this in turn will avail students with competitive advantage opportunity in the global economy. Students will become well-grounded in soft skills, just as some of the panelists have actually discussed, and they will have the capability of being able to get beautiful jobs and equally being able to create value when they finish from school. And some of these skills, you know, communication skill, leadership skill, and knowledge and entrepreneurship skill. Students too will become job creators rather than becoming job seekers. I know one of the panelists will still be talking about the alarming rate of unemployment in Africa today, and I know she'll be giving out the data. Rather than creating students that will go outside there and join the queue where there are no jobs, the university should rethink on how to create and develop students who will create startups and take these businesses outside the university to the community to actually create jobs. And finally, once we have this entrepreneurial-oriented university, the youth future is secured because all relevant skills that will promote adaptability to change in the future world of work have been enabled through entrepreneurial, opportunities in the university, platform. I will say that this again does not have an alternative. We must create an entrepreneurship or re-enter university, create opportunity so that African youth can be able to be extremely globally competitive in the fourth industrial revolution. Thank you very much for me here. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Adebisi. Thank you very much, sir. At this time, shall we have Professor Dimi Doreska?
Certainly, and thank you so much. And I will share my screen to begin to that. Perfect. Can you all see my screen now?
Yeah,
yes.
perfect.
You're seeing my, okay, thank you. Well, thank you, Dr. Adebisi, Dr. Shitu, and Dr. Olusanya for putting this great event together. And I believe we have the youth population across sub-Saharan Africa tuning in for this great program. I know that Professor Baletti and talked about the skills, the hard skills that will be needed post-pandemic, or that we need now to build the Africa, the competitive Africa that we all dream of. But I need to tell you that to be that disruptor, to be that change maker, to be the status quo challenger that we are all looking for, we need 3 major soft skills that I believe are very important for you to take advantage of all the opportunities that are going to come. The value of networking, number 1. Cross-cultural skills, being able to adapt yourselves to different cultures in the world, even within sub-Saharan Africa, because we cannot talk about one Africa. I mean, we cannot talk about one country when we talked about Africa. And then last but not least, embracing diversity, which I believe that we all need to understand in the context of the world that we are living in. When we talk about the value of networking, my friends, if there is one important action that one can take for its personal growth, is to build a solid network. We hear all the time, your network is your net worth. That's the cliche we hear all the time. However, you need to know how to do that. You need to get out of your comfort zones. If there is one time that you need to capitalize on your network, it is now. Now that you cannot go out, now that you are confined within the 4 walls of your home, this is the time to put yourself out there and start networking. As entrepreneurs, there are organizations around the world that you can check out and find out what they are doing during this time of the pandemic. There is the Entrepreneurs Organization, okay, which is the world only peer-to-peer network solely for entrepreneurs to connect, to share knowledge, to discuss ideas, to bounce ideas at each other. There is the Young Entrepreneur Council. There is a Social Enterprise Alliance. And then the list goes on. I'm not going to go through all of them. You're going to have the slides after this, and you can, I mean, if you want to take a picture of this, you can. Then there is also Facebook group for entrepreneurs that you can look for. Entrepreneur Magazine, ladies who launch. Social media for small business. Young entrepreneurs, urban social entrepreneurs, social media today. All of those are groups that you can join to really, you know, talk about, to really get your network, to grow your network. But remember, right in your city, right in your towns, there are lots of chamber of commerce, lots of young chambers that are organizing online events, Zoom presentations, Zoom networking, events that we are participating now today, that you should take advantage of during this time of the pandemic to grow your network. Your network is your net worth. You need to continue growing your network. Okay? Now, when we talked about culture, my friend, this is something I'm very passionate about because I teach international business and I teach cross-cultural skills to students. Do you know that cross-cultural risk is the #1 risk that makes an entrepreneur fail when they try to do cross-border venture because they don't cultivate that global mindset that we all require to succeed. One thing that you need to know, culture is not right or wrong. It's something relative. There is no culture absolute. Different nationalities simply perceive the world differently. They simply see things differently from the way you see it. That's why you need to learn about those collective phenomenon, those shared values and their meanings, to be able to design your products and services to better serve those new markets. Culture is not inherited, it derives from the social environment. We are not born with the shared values or beliefs, we acquire them. And the way we acquire them is by opening up, by accepting the differences that exist among ourselves. And when we accept those differences, we can better adapt ourselves, we can better adapt our products, adapt our service while we are trying to penetrate new markets, while we are trying to acquire new clients from those new markets. And one thing that you need to know, COVID-19 has taught us that we are living in a globalized world. If you are thinking of being a disruptor, that change maker that Professor Baletti talked about, you have to think of that big thing that you're gonna make that will go beyond your border. And you don't wanna have that ethnocentric orientation by saying that my culture is the best, my country is the best, whatever I make in my country, other places in Africa or in the world should accept it. We don't want that. We don't want that ethnocentric orientation. We want the geocentric orientation whereby you cultivate a global mindset where you talk about understanding of business or market without regard to national boundaries. That's what we want you to strive for. We want you to strive for that geocentric orientation, my friends. This is very, very important. That's how you show that you have that global mindset and you are cross-culturally competent to deal in this interconnected world that we are living in. And there's this beautiful quote that I want to leave with you with these discussions on culture. Without mutual knowledge, there can be no mutual understanding. Without understanding, there can be no trust and respect. Without trust, there can be no peace, only the danger of conflict. This means we have to be willing and able to familiarize ourselves with the way people of other cultures think and perceive the world around them, but without losing our own standpoint in the process. Roman Herzog was the president of Germany during the reunification after the fall of the Berlin Wall. And he was facing this difficult situation to reconcile both culture of East and West Germany. And he said this famous quote, which I agree with, which I would like for you to reflect on and make yours as well. Now, when we talked about embracing diversity, my friends, this is a key thing. And I know the Gen Z generation that the professor talked about earlier, the professor that spoke before Dr. Adebisi, they are so keen about this diversity, the social component and the personal component. When you talked about the social component, you looked at education, you looked at habits, you looked at language, you looked at family status, religion, work background. In Africa, oh my goodness, you find this salad bowl in the social components of diversity. How about the personal components, which we are still struggling to accept on the continent, which I'm going to challenge you to push for, to invite your friends, your colleagues, your parents, your grandparents, okay, your marabout, your religious leaders, etc., to understand there is gender difference, There is difference in sexual orientation. There is difference in ethnicity, in age, in race, in the way people, in physical appearance. That's what we need to understand. Once we start understanding these differences in how we are, in how we think, in how we are educated, in our languages, then we will know that this is a diverse world, and we will accept the unity in diversity. Unity in diversity is what the language of youth today should have. Thank you very much. That's all I have for you, and I look forward to the Q&A sessions.
Thank you very much, Professor Doreska.
We will now call on Dr. Priscilla Baffour to make her presentation. Thank you. Dr. Priscilla Baffour.
Thank you. I'm trying to share my screen. So thank you very much for the ARUA Center of Skills and Unemployment in University of Lagos for the opportunity to make a presentation on this special occasion. So I am speaking about the severity of youth unemployment in Africa in the COVID-19 era. What does the future hold basically for the African youth? I am trying to do a slideshow.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So indeed, youth unemployment challenge in Africa is due to the inability of African economies to be able to create jobs. And here, when we talk about jobs, we are looking at formal sector jobs, because in principle, when we look at decent jobs, jobs that give individuals some level of security, then formal sector jobs are the jobs that come with these characteristics. But we know that African economies have not been able to provide these kinds of jobs because of the trajectory of growth that our economies have been on. When we look at economies in East Asia, newly industrialized economies like North and South Korea, Taiwan, China, we know that structural transformation has occurred where industrialization is now the driver of their growth. Basically, in Africa, we know that I will show a chart in my next slide to see that our path of structural transformation has been different. Agriculture is losing its hold in terms of it being the dominant employer of people in our economies. But instead of manufacturing and in the industrial sector taking the lead, it is rather services. And services do not create the needed jobs that we need for the teeming young people on our streets. So recent projections indicate that between 2000 and 2003, about 1/3 of all African economies are expected to grow about 5%. This has been revised downwards by about 1.5% with the corona pandemic. So the challenge really in Africa is not about growth. Most African economies are growing well. And when you look at individual economies, you see that you take Ghana, for example, it has consistently grown above the African average, but we still struggle with job creation. Why is that? Because of the high fertility rate on the continent some decades ago, and also the inability of our economies to create sustainable jobs. Estimates point to the fact that policymakers need to create substantial number of formal sector jobs to be able to absorb all the young people that enter the labor market every year, but our economies have not been able to do that. So when you look at this diagram, we see that in terms of the overall growth on the economies in Africa, this is the pattern. So this is the GDP path, looking at the contribution of manufacturing sector, which is the gray one. We look at agriculture, which is the blue. This is for industry, and then the yellow is for services. And you see that most economies in Africa are being driven by the service sector. The challenge with service sector is that the jobs that are created within the service sector are not very sustainable jobs, because most of the jobs are in the informal sector. And the high-end service sector jobs are jobs that require high education, and most of our young people on the continent do not have that high level of education. So the structural transformation path, when you look at most East Asian economies, it was rather the industrial sector, this orange one, which should rather have been at the top. And that is what theory tells us, because it's manufacturing and industry that drives employment generation. But the story for Africa is quite different. And that explains the challenges the continent faces with job creation. So we look at youth unemployment across the globe. And when you look at the statistics based on information on, from ILO, you see that unemployment really is not a major problem in Africa as it's made to be. Why is unemployment not such a major problem? The problem in Africa is not really about unemployment, but the types of jobs people are doing, right? Why is that? Because most of our economies do not give support to people who are unemployed. So typically you will not find unemployment benefits payments to young people or to unemployed people in African economies. So the issue is people are too poor not to work, because if you don't work, you do not feed. So people get jobs, pick up subsistence activities. So you find that when you look in the data, underemployment and vulnerable jobs are a major challenge on the continent. And here, unemployment is also part of it. But when you look at Africa, you see that Africa's unemployment challenge is a little above that of North America and Central America, but it competes with other continents, because the challenge we face is that most of our economies are informal in nature, so people pick up anything at all to do. And those things they pick up to do, we cannot call them decent jobs. So we need to take a look at that. So I look into the data to find out the extent of youth unemployment by selected African countries, because when you look at the aggregate data, it tends to hide the nuances within the statistics. And here, when you look at the pattern, you see that most economies that are informal in nature in Africa have lower unemployment statistics, right? And that makes sense, because people do not have the luxury to sit at home to claim to be unemployed. They would rather pick up something, take a tray, go to the lorry station, sell something. And those activities, when we go collecting data about unemployment, those individuals will not be part of the unemployment pool. So when you look at countries like, for example, Ghana, which has a very high informal sector, Kenya, you look at Nigeria is somewhere here, you find that economies that are highly formalized in Africa have high unemployment rates. And here I don't have the data for South Africa, which is a typical example. South Africa is a highly formalized economy, and that South Africa economy has a very high unemployment rate, because you just cannot pick up anything. You just cannot set up a store to sell something just because you are unemployed. So the level of unemployment is greater the more formalized African economies are. And the more informalized the economies are, the lower the level of unemployment statistics that are reported. And that applies to young people as well. And here you find that according to statistics on the UN, unemployment, informal economy is about 80% of all African economies. And the jobs people do are precarious, vulnerable jobs, averaging about 66% of all jobs on the continent. And this situation is worsened by the COVID-19 pandemic, which is both a health and humanitarian crisis, as well as an economic crisis as well, because of the way the disease ought to be managed. So we know that over time, a number of African countries have tried to find ways to combat youth unemployment, but not a lot of success has been attained. Why is that? Because most of the times, you find economies coming out with knee-jerk reactions to unemployment challenges, whether for political reasons or the longer time it takes for most of these policies to pay off. So I'm asking, what is the way forward, particularly with the corona pandemic? We also know that with COVID and within the industrial revolution that we are facing, the world of work is changing. And indeed, with COVID, the world of work has changed. Remote working is now what is on the block at the moment. So we know that the youth ought to be equipped to be able to adapt and change to the changing global scene in the changing world of work. And in that sense, skill training is critical, as Prof. Adebisi indicated. How are we training our young graduates? Emphasis on soft and digital skills is important. How do people identify needs and go out to find ways to solve those needs? That is when entrepreneurial training is also important, for people to look around and find solutions to societal problems and out of it create jobs. And then technical and vocational training is also critical for our young people, hands-on skill sets to be able to adapt to the changing season. We know that within the COVID pandemic, a number of countries have also come up with packages to support young entrepreneurs and the private sector. We advocate that the support should be tailored towards young people. It should be youth sensitive. Support to startups and private sector initiatives are also important. So in all this, we are saying that the future depends on how we harness the talents. And here the talents critically will be harnessed by the educational institutions. It will be harnessed by the type of skills that we give our young people. And that means that soft skills and digital skills are critical. Thank you very much.
Many thanks, Dr. Priscilla Buffo, for your presentation. Shall we have at this time Professor Kesh Govinda for his presentation?
Good afternoon.
Professor
Thank you very much
Govinda.
for giving me the opportunity. Okay. So I think it is quite clear to all of us here today that we are working in an evolving workplace. It's quite clear to everybody that at least half of our work activities are ripe for automation. You've seen some of these statistics already. The McKinsey Global Institute has put out quite a number of reports talking about the future of work and the impact that artificial intelligence and automation will have on these particular jobs. In particular, if we look at the World Economic Forum, in its Future of Jobs report, it pointed out that while at the moment around 70% of labor is performed by humans and in 29% by machine, in just a few short years, that will be less than 50% for human work and far more than 50% for machine work. And I think what is really remarkable about this is how quickly that's going to be happening. Their projection is this is going to happen in 2025. So that is just a few short years away. In Africa, as we embrace AI and automation in the fourth industrial revolution, we can expect an impact both in agriculture, in healthcare, public services, and financial service. And the University of Pretoria has put out an excellent report on how AI and automation will impact Africa. Against this backdrop, of course, there are a number of opportunities. So while we expect to lose a number of jobs, something around 75 million jobs, the World Economic Forum expects that we'll be creating at least 133 million jobs over the next very few years. These jobs will be in a number of different categories, and I've just listed the top 10 jobs according to the WEF. And if you look at this list of positions, you can see that at least 7 of them directly speak to the fourth industrial revolution. So this will mean that workers will see quite a shift in the required workplace skills in the period leading up to 2025, probably around a 40% change in these required workplace skills. Fortunately, Mrs. Mabangunje has given an excellent introduction to the different types of skills that one would need, and I'll just highlight 1 or 2 of them, including analytic thinking and active learning, as well as technology design, which is going to be quite important. Obviously, the very technical skills around programming is going to be hugely important, but we shouldn't ignore the human skills. We've spoken about emotional intelligence already thus far, but creativity, originality, critical thinking, persuasion, negotiation are all skills that will not just retain their value, but will certainly increase their value over the next few years. And let me just take a minute to plug my particular discipline of mathematics here, because this is the particular discipline that doesn't only train you in the technical skills, but also in the human skills, the creative skills. And it is indeed quite important to ensure that if we really want to embrace the fourth industrial revolution, that our skills in mathematics have to be improved dramatically across the continent. We need far more individuals working in mathematics than we currently have, as this gives us a base for us to be able to make an impact in just about every single field. And I think we really need to look at a renewed focus on mathematics across Africa. One of the opportunities that I think we've ignored when it comes to the fourth industrial revolution is the opportunity for women. Most of us have probably forgotten, perhaps the film Hidden Figures has reminded us, but we've forgotten that actually the first programmers were all female. In fact, it is only in the late part of the 20th century that men started to dominate the technical space, the information technical space. And now, of course, men are completely dominating that space. And we should go back and look at exactly what has happened over these years, because information technology was really a field that used to be dominated by women and has great opportunities for women to start making the same sort of impact that they had in the past. Now, when we look at all the opportunities, we obviously want to look at what actual employment there is. And in reading through these various McKinsey Global Institute reports, I came across the following statement, which was really quite eye-opening for me. Because according to this particular report, there is work for everyone today, and there'll be work for everyone tomorrow, even in a future with automation. And this is quite important because it shows the bias of particular reports that we are constantly moving to inform how we move forward. Because this, of course, is not the reality for Africa. Okay, we've already just heard from Dr. Before with regards to the unemployment rate throughout Africa. According to the World Bank, Africa's youth account for 60% of all of Africa's jobless. But more importantly, and again, this is a point made very well by Dr. Before, that underemployment is a bigger issue in Africa. That more than 70% of the youth in a number of the countries are either self-employed or contributing to family work, and are therefore not considered to be fully employed in the African continent. I guess what is particularly worrying is that all of these were pre-COVID-19 numbers. For me, we really need to change the narrative, change the way we look at things by embracing artificial intelligence and automation. And so just a few parting words in terms of how I believe we should be looking at artificial intelligence and automation in Africa. Firstly, to quote my co-focal node leader in South Africa, Professor Windapo from the University of Cape Town, who always pushes the idea of building. We have to be focusing on building, and she's absolutely correct. We cannot make progress without any infrastructure at all. And that we cannot make any progress without infrastructure. I think what COVID has shown us is that even in South Africa, we call ourselves the most developed economy in Africa, but even in the so-called most developed economy, we have been woefully underprepared for COVID. Our universities are struggling to get information out to our students. Not just our undergrad students, but even our postgrad students don't have computers, they don't have access to the web. And so if we don't have the infrastructure in place, as much as we embrace artificial intelligence and automation, we will not be able to ensure that it will impact everybody in Africa meaningfully. As I've said previously, we have to prioritize education, mathematics in particular. If we don't do that, we will not be able to make the impact that we want to make. And I just want to close with a quote from my dear friend and colleague at the University of KwaZulu-Natal, Dr. Lutz. She is a performance lecturer and a dance artist herself, and always places the role of humanities at center stage when it comes to the way we look at the fourth industrial revolution. And she has said that the humanities have a vital role to play in offering critical counter-narratives and research to a technological-driven fourth industrial revolution. The government does not place human lived experience, ethics, and human rights at the center of inquiry. And I think as we embrace AI and automation, we should not ignore the humanities. I think Africa is well placed to ensure that, that the human lived experience, that ethics and human rights are certainly at the center of our inquiries as we move forward with AI and automation. Thank you very much.
Many thanks, Professor Govinda. We must prioritize education in mathematics. Thank you. At this time, may I invite Dr. Akanima Odon for his 5-minute presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'm going to share my screen now. Okay. Is that clear?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, good. So, it's an absolute pleasure to be here, and thank you so much to the ARUA Center and to the organizers of this incredible event, the World Youth Skills Day. My name is Dr. Akanimo, and actually I want to speak a bit, maybe take a different perspective to this view. Now, I'm giving the topic, coping strategies for the African youth, and within the concept of the dimension of global citizenship in the changing workplace. And so right away, that topic assumes, I assume that you're saying in the midst of societal pressures, political dimensions or effect of systems, what can the individual youth do as an individual? Forget about what's happening outside. I mean, we've spoken a lot today about the need for universities to teach more soft skills and the need for government to create good environments for economic productivity, the need to increase entrepreneurial skills. Why that is fantastic, I'm aware that because there are young people listening to me, that almost in some sense, as far as they are concerned, they've got no impact or no contribution to that actual athlete. What can they do? They're just young students going to university in Lagos or somewhere in Nairobi. What can I do? So I want to focus a bit more around the individual coping strategies for the African youth. In the midst of all of this, what can you as an individual do differently to differentiate yourself within the dimension of global citizenship? Imagine everything else fails, because ultimately, the capacity for success in your career pursuit with regards to your skills development to meet specific market needs actually automatically, in some sense, kind of balls in your hand. Now, global citizenship. I think about that's a dimension that transcends borders and geography. You see yourself being able to contribute to civil responsibility, you are culturally aware, you understand environmental sustainability and the global economy. Now, for that to happen, that means you need to understand that the value of creativity, flexibility. You can't just determine or view yourself as a student in Dar es Salaam, and that's what you are, or as a young person in Lusaka, Zambia, because that's what you are. As a global citizen, you are beyond that. Your positioning transcends your geography, your space, and your place. And obviously, it means, therefore, that for that to happen, it begins with the individual. So now, I don't want to go through all this data because I've got only just 5 minutes. So much data has been thrown out around unemployment in Africa and the fact that, as a matter of fact, even though there's increased population growth in Africa and there's increased education by data, and unemployment seems to increase. So there's obviously a disconnect somewhere. So I'm saying, I want to focus on specific coping strategies, okay, just to kind of get to the nitty-gritty. In my mind, having traveled across different African countries and also engaging with young people in different jurisdictions, I believe strongly it begins with the individual, the understanding of your global self and your global space. So I'll give an example. When I began my career as a young person, I saw myself as a Nigerian expert, which was nice. It means therefore that by my understanding of my space, everything I did was related to Nigeria. When I was traveling, it was Nigeria. When I was watching a news item, it was bounced back on the fact that I saw myself in my mind as a Nigerian expert. The moment I realized, and if you go to my LinkedIn page now, you will see I've called myself an African expert. The moment I assumed in my mind, it begins with the individual, because a global citizenship is not restricted by space. It means it has to be by the mind. Immediately I started calling myself an African expert. It impacted on all my actions, everything else I did. I began to look for that. Obviously that connects to understanding of your space. So I always ask the question to the average young person listening to me: what would you prefer? Would you prefer to call yourself a Nigerian young person thinking about a global space? Or would you prefer to call yourself a global citizen, an African youth? Only you only happen to be living in Nigeria as of now. Which would you prefer? And I've done this several times. And over 98% of everybody I asked always prefer the latter: a global young person, an international student, an international youth, but it only happen to be living in your jurisdiction. What it does is, once you restrict your space, you restrict your place. And automatically, that kind of connects to what one of the speakers was talking about, understanding connections and partnerships. Now, because of that dimension of appreciating that I'm an African young person, it means, therefore, I can't call myself an African expert if all I know is just Nigeria. Africa's got 55 countries, over 1 billion people. I think I can do better than that. And therefore, it begins to increase your capacity for connections. Interestingly, we live in a world where there is enough resources available to increase your connections with other locations, with other individuals, other partners. There is LinkedIn. I asked the average African youth, how many of you have got LinkedIn? They'll tell me, yes, they do. And I ask, what it is. So how many pages is your LinkedIn? And they will tell me, well, maybe just about 2 pages. And I say, well, how many pages is the CV on your laptop you got your last job on? And they'll tell me 5 pages. So I can't understand that. How come the actual representation of your capacity and potential that's gathering dust on your laptop is 10 pages, but the basis of your connection to the outside world, which provides a basis or a platform for potential opportunities, is just 2 pages. So it begins with the individual. And right away I discovered, because of my understanding of self and global self and space, it affected my connectivity. So for example, I would do things like every year, I would say, well, this year, I want to increase how many partners or how many connections I have in Nairobi, even though I'm Nigerian. I want to increase how many, and it's very easy once that perspective comes to view. Take things around understanding the use of LinkedIn, social media platforms. While it's good to use these platforms for social interactions, it's even better to use them for career enhancement, skills development. We've spoken a lot today about skills development, and that's non-arguable. It's obviously clear. For you to actually align yourself with a new era, you need to up your skills. So, but the point is, in environments where the university is not teaching you the skills you require, what would you do? Well, you will live in a world where there is so much training, so much free courses, so much free programs available you can tap into. It's about understanding what skills you need to achieve what specific objectives. Aligning yourself with global agendas. And in my mind, the one I can quickly think about is a global agenda around sustainable development goals. Do you even know what it is? It's the biggest global agenda, which in some sense, across the 17 goals, lists out clearly specific elements, a specific subject matter that in one form or the other, you can align yourself to. Think of yourself as a solution provider. We live in a continent where, as I travel around, there is so much complaints, and you can understand why, because nothing seems to work. There's so much struggle. And so in the midst of that, I've decided to say, well, the average African youth going forward, think yourself as a solution provider. Don't think yourself as a complainer. What can you do? Because ultimately, whether it's an enterprise, an NGO, a company, an institution, the average enterprise by default is set up on the back of providing a solution to a critical problem. It means, therefore, if you understand that problems are raw materials to solution and they provide a basis for creativity and innovation, it means that you can begin to align yourself within your environment. Which problems are available? Can I provide a solution to? Is the basis of being entrepreneurial. And ultimately, once you align yourself with the right partners, increase your understanding of space, understand yourself and your capacity to impact your environment, and you're able to tap into available resources, you begin to actually put yourself in a good positioning to be a true global citizen with the right strategies for coping in the space of obstacles. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Akanimo, for that apt presentation. Once you restrict your connection, you restrict your space. Very insightful. Thank you very much. At this point, may I invite Dr. Joy Kiru for her 5-minute presentation.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak in this forum. It's my great pleasure to be here. It's usually difficult to speak the last after so many bright minds have spoken, because you're always asking yourself, what is it that I can say? What is it that I can add? But that said, I will still come up with my presentation and I will not have to, I don't have to repeat things which have been said, meaning that I'll be very fast and quick. So I've been asked to talk about making entrepreneurship a culture for African youths in tackling unemployment occasioned by COVID-19. So it's a very specific topic. Now, I want to start by asking ourselves, what is entrepreneurship? What is it? And it is the capacity and the willingness to develop, organize, and manage a business venture along with any of its risks in order to make a profit. It's about managing, taking risks, and profits. Unlike what you see in Africa, it is never an opportunity to cope with desperation or lack of a job. Real entrepreneurs must have an entrepreneurial mindset. They must set out to innovate to solve problems, or at least to shift consumption dynamics. Entrepreneurship, unlike what you've seen with our African policymakers, is never meant to be a mere tool to cope with poverty. When you see that youths need work and all that, you create some little funds and tell them, no, go and work. It's never supply driven. And real entrepreneurship is demand driven. People decide that it's a problem I can solve. There is an opportunity I can take advantage of and make a profit on the side while doing good. Then they go ahead and do it. So entrepreneurship and COVID-19, what do we see? COVID-19 has brought up a lot of structural changes. Business as usual models have actually been challenged and they have failed. You see, COVID-19, the moment this health crisis, the moment it encompasses social distancing, then it becomes an economic crisis, meaning that all those businesses which are service-oriented are going to go down. And as these businesses go down, jobs are getting lost. And now a lot of consumers are focusing on just bare minimals, things like healthcare, and food. If you're selling clothes out there, I'm working at home most of my times. Actually, 90% of my work is now in the house. What do I need new clothes for? We don't know how long it's gonna be before we go out there. If you're selling timber or other things for long-term, whatever, you're going to lose a lot of customers. So business as usual models are being challenged. And so what there is for the youth is to differentiate two things with COVID-19. There are the transient opportunities which are coming and going after the pandemic, and there are those enduring opportunities which will come up even after, which are already here and they're likely to endure for long. If you talk about the transient opportunities, these opportunities like here in Nairobi, a lot of people are wearing masks and they have said it openly because they don't want to be arrested by the police. The moment the situation relaxes and the police are no longer bothered about people not wearing masks, for example, you're going to see people stopping to wear them altogether. Now it's a regulation in Kenya, for example, if you're going to have a shop, you must provide hand sanitizer or at least hand washing, even if you're selling simple groceries by the roadside. And that is being enforced by the law. The moment that relaxes, probably maybe we found a vaccine, or will eventually, because eventually the pandemic will go, like we've seen in history and as expected, whether either through communal immunity of a vaccine. One way to go, it's just about how long we need to hang in there. Once that has been resolved, then all these things have been driven by law enforcement, things like hand washing, gadgets, wearing of face masks, all these policies driving for innovations for hand washing in public spaces, all those will become redundant once again. So those are what you're calling the low-hanging fruits for now that the youth can invest in, providing all these innovative ways to ensure that hands are washed even with limited running water, providing innovations to ensure that there's water utilities, because people have to provide this water, and water in Nairobi is very expensive. So you find that all these are low-lying fruits, but they are quite perishable. The moment the pandemic is resolved, they go. But there are also the enduring opportunities. Working from home is going to stay. It is here with us. But then working from home, like somebody already pointed out, comes with its own challenges. For you to concentrate and work properly, you need somebody to take care of the children, to take care of the other domestic issues. We are going to need not just the rural house girl who is desperate looking for work. When you go to the village, you find a desperate girl, you give her a desperate job, you pay her a desperate salary, you get desperate services. That's gonna change. People will be demanding professionals to run homes like professionals, and they're going to be paying them professional salaries. That is where the demand is. Because as I sit here, as I participate here, for example, I want to be assured that proper nutrition meals are being done downstairs, and children are being taken care of by somebody who understands about children, somebody who's trained about minimal safety, first aid kits, and that is where it's going. A lot of home-related comfort, safety, and it's going to be there. So services like home cleaning, home deliveries, because like we have seen, like the idea of shopping, the comfort of shopping online, which has just started with the pandemic because people don't want to be too much exposed, it will only pick up after this. So you better prepare yourself for such kind of opportunities and strategize yourself to show that you are providing the best in terms of convenience and price as far as those opportunities are concerned. The other things that are going to be there other than that, it's about now the social networking platform, digital platforms, and other kind of innovations that make it easier for people to communicate along space and time. So all those are going to be there, and those are going to be very enduring opportunities which are not going to see disappearing after the pandemic. So we need to position ourselves as youth to differentiate, because how do we invest during the pandemic, and to ensure that we do not overinvest in transient opportunities, and leverage on the long-term opportunities and strategize ourselves for that. So when you talk about entrepreneurship, we know a lot of governments in Kenya, there's a youth fund, there's a youth enterprise development, there's a youth that, because the policymakers, of course, it makes political sense to make the youth out there thinking that you care for them and thinking that they are busy. But unfortunately, a lot of youths are sort of like busy like a dog chasing its own tail. It believes that one day it will just catch it up. And I'm saying this in terms of, if you ask yourself, entrepreneurship for what? Business for what? If it's not about livelihoods and welfare improvement, then what is it for? Then in that case, as the youth engage in this, what what a previous presenter said, that this desperate coping opportunities just to be involved because you are too poor not to work, like the presenter put it, then you find that yes, it makes political sense because yeah, they are busy, they can sort of like postpone a civil strife and things like that for the future. But the question is, what is it that will make good entrepreneurs? Self-motivation, not demand-driven. The youth have to be mentored and their eyes open for them to develop the desire for entrepreneurship, to look at what opportunities can turn into business entrepreneurships, what problems in society or what consumption alternatives, and in terms of the way goods are manufactured, delivered, and consumed, what alternatives can they produce to attract people to want to buy their services or to buy their ideas. Self-driven is never supply-driven like we are seeing. Understanding the product and your niche. It's not just about picking anything else there that you think you can sell. Honestly, how do you make a livelihood by selling pencils on the streets? You know, taking calculated risks. Of course, life has no guarantees. Having the right attitude, willingness to learn from past mistakes, constant adjustments, and persistence. Those are core characteristics of an entrepreneur. The youth today want quick gains. You want to drive the biggest car tomorrow. You want to live in the biggest house tomorrow. That is never the mind of the entrepreneurs. An entrepreneur understands that life has no guarantees whatsoever. You need to have the right attitude, learn constantly, make your mistakes, learn from them, adjust and be persistent and just keep focused on the big goal. Good value networks. You know, it's okay. It's okay to grow up in the ghetto and to want to start a good life even if you are living in the ghetto. That is the spirit. But the point is you must go out of your way and create good value networks. Because the point is, if you want to sell a product, for example, if you think that, for example, bottled water, which has become a big issue in Africa, everybody wants to drink bottled water. And there's a history for that. We can only discuss that for another day, why bottled water has become so a big hit, especially in Kenya. There's a history to that. And everybody wants to drink bottled water because it is believed that it is safe, it is clean, and you will not get diseases. Now, bottled water is very expensive, but there is the opportunity in terms of refilling that water in cheaper. Now, if you want to refill bottled water, would you rather sell water to people who have not yet afforded the food, or would you rather sell water to the middle income people who have already overcome the food challenge and are looking much more in life than just affording food in terms of safety? In northern Kenya, there's a saying that says that there is no bad water and there's no unclean water. All water is water, because they believe, because water is very rare. So the point is, you got to go out there and find value networks who are willing to buy into your product because they can afford it and because they've reason about that. Strategize into good social gatherings. Join a good church, for example. Attend premium social gathering and strategize yourself, and always take the opportunity to introduce what you've got. It's about value networks that can add value in terms of what you are out there selling, and then the passion in what we are doing. So in conclusion, what are the handles that youth face? Societal perception. Can the youth be trusted? It's about personal branding. Lack of capital. Of course, start slow, diligently, and potentially grow your business. Lack of skills. Learn as much as you can, leverage opportunities, and of course, like I said, improve your networks. Of course, the self-image, how you present yourself, how you present whatever you're selling, how you present your ideas is what counts in terms of your personal branding. And with that, I say thank you very much, and I hope that we shall see youth entrepreneurs who start up and scale up, other than start up and just remain in sort of like in the same spot all the time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Joy. And to all our listeners, just as Dr. Joy has said, there is opportunity in our environment. All we need to do is just look inwards, identify, explore, and exploit them to our own advantage. Thank you very much, Dr. Joy. At this point in time, we'd like to move to our audience. We have several questions for our panelists, and we would like to spend the remaining 20 minutes asking some of these questions from our panelists. I would like to start with Mrs. Tokima Buguje. We have a question from Temayari, and he says, how can African governments successfully develop a sustainable model that will encourage youths to engage in vocational and technical education? Thank you, ma'am. Over to you, Mrs. Toki.
All right. So the quick answer to that is, first of all, you need to have the appropriate legal framework that allows you to set up these vocational training centers. So a good example of that is Lagos State government that actually has passed a law that allows vocational training in Lagos State. So you need a legal framework. Secondly, you need to have a really dynamic way of creating, developing, and designing your curriculum for the training. I think from the Lagos Chamber point of view, the biggest missing piece is that connection between gown and town. You know, the industrial sector feels a bit left out from this whole issue of how our future or potential employees are trained. So you need to have a system where there's very close consultation with industry, and then have a really dynamic system for creating curriculum so it adapts quickly to changing circumstances. Then I think the third big part is around funding. You know, how do these training centers get funded? How do those who come out of these centers themselves get funded? Because those who come out, the trainees from these vocational centers have two tracks. They either have the track of being employees or they themselves becoming employers of labor. So how to encourage them also to create wealth by setting up their own enterprises where they practice the vocations that they have learned. I think those are my quick answers to that question.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Toki. Abosede says, how to foster successful transformation, okay, of young people in informal sector moving into the formal sector. I would like to throw this question to Dr. Priscilla. So this has to do with formalizing the informal sector. So how do we actually encourage young people, okay, who find succor in informal sector to transit over time into the formal sector? Over to you, Dr. Priscilla. Thank you. Dr. Priscilla? Hello, Dr. Priscilla?
Yes, so
okay.
Yes.
I think
okay. Dr. Priscilla?
All right.
Okay, let's move on to Professor Kesh. You have a question specifically directed to you, and it is from one of our participants, Oluyemi Adeosun. He would like to know what strategies can be adopted to upskill youths quickly and at mass levels. Professor Kesh.
Right. So I think the reality is that you shouldn't expect the upskilling to happen overnight. And I think our last speaker just spoke about that instant gratification. You can't actually get these things overnight. It needs a lot of hard work. And I think we need to be prepared for that. There's certainly a number of online courses where you can get some very specific technical skills, for example, to allow you to design a particular app that will allow you to be innovative in some way. But the reality is, you've got to put in the hard work for a reasonable period of time, get the right education in place before you're able to make the impact that you can. So let's not try to short circuit this. We do need hard work. And from my experience of the youth in Africa, we're very used to hard work, and that is something that we can deal with very easily.
Thank you so much, Professor Kesh. Indeed, hard work really pays. I would move on to Dr. Adebisi. You have this question directed to you by our participant, that's the Bola Thomas, if you're listening. Dr. Adebisi, what policy measures have been adopted by African countries to support African youth employment? Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. And That is the more reason for which we have our center, and we've been trying to.
Hello, Dr. Adebisi.
Hello, can you hear me? I'm on now.
Okay, boss.
I'm answering the question. I said, thank you, Balao. Well, that is one of the reasons why we have this center. Right from time immemorial, African government have been trying to solve the youth unemployment in Africa with different kind of programs. For each government that comes on board, we come on board with a program, to see if they could address it. But very funny, the curve has been upward. It's not going down. We agree that the fact that the government seems to be trying to do, but is there a kind of a dysfunctional relationship among all the stakeholders? Because government cannot do it all alone. It should be the society, the government, and even the youth themselves. So we've discovered that from the baseline assessment we've even been doing now at this center, they looked at, we've not concluded this research, but it's pointing toward that there is a disconnect even between the government trying to solve youth unemployment and even the youth that has the problem of unemployment. So that disconnect needs, first of all, need to be resolved. And at every point in time, there's going to be a campaign for solving unemployment situation. All stakeholders must be on board so as to understand what needs to be done. And I think that is the preliminary, I would say, output we're getting for now. But to be very realistic, it's very worrisome that there have been a lot of programs, like Nigeria, for example. For each government that comes on board, there will be a program for the youth. And by the time the government is completing a cycle, when you monitor the unemployment rate, it will have even increased more than before that program was launched. So it's a serious challenge, and we know that in due course, we'll use research to really bring out what is wrong and what the solutions can be.
Thank you very much, Dr. Adebisi. Before I move on to the next question, I would like to appreciate our sponsors who have actually made this program a reality for us today. The ARUA, that is the African Research University Alliance, as well as the UKRI through the Global Challenge Research Fund. They have actually made this grant available with which we are promoting this program. Okay, my next question will go to Professor Baleti. We have a question from Kokuola, who says, how can young entrepreneurs succeed with the changing government policies that has characterized the African continent? Thank you, Professor Baleti.
Thank you very much for the question. I think in many countries, we turn to overemphasize what the government can do for us. And I think that I was born in Peru, in a country which has in South America, I speak Spanish fluently. Our unemployment rate was very, very high. I left when I was 22 years old. I think that the idea that the government is going to take care of all my problems has to disappear. I think the government has an important role, but it cannot be one that does everything. Our countries don't have the resources, we don't have the capacity, we don't have the infrastructure, and the government becomes a nice little beating, institution that we can always complain about. I think that this is everybody's problem. I very much agree with Mrs. Toki Mabunji's comments that what we really need to do in Nigeria and countries like Nigeria is link industry, which is the people who hire people with the people that we are producing in universities and colleges. When I was in Abuja, I've been in Abuja twice, I've been in Lagos 3 times, people would tell me, I can't hire the people I want or I need. And the students were telling me I can't get a job. So there's clearly a disconnect. So I think that the answer to the question is the first thing to do is to ensure that the entrepreneurs that we have a pretty good idea of what is required in terms of getting paid and making that payment sustainable over time. We can talk about entrepreneurship of all we want, but at the end of the day, entrepreneurship boils down to ensuring that somebody is going to get money out of their pocket and give it to me to solve a problem. we need to be able to solve problems. So it's not that, obviously mathematics is important, or that is foundational, absolutely. But at the end of the day, entrepreneurs have to understand how to solve somebody's problem that is willing to pay them. And that is really only possible if the link between industry and universities and the youth that we're developing gets a lot tighter, a lot more connected than what I've seen when I visited certainly Nigeria and other countries in Africa.
Thank you very much, Professor Baleti. We have just about 10 minutes more to go, and I'm going to give our panelists 1 minute each to answer a few questions, just in 1 minute. Please pardon me, at the expiration of 1 minute, I'm going to stop you. I'm going to start with Professor Doreska. What support do African youths need to be globally competitive? Professor Doreska.
You know, as we all hear, the challenges, unemployment, the challenges with networking, with mentorship, etc. I think we need, African youth needs to be globally competitive with their peers. That's why they need to learn about the practice of the entrepreneurial process. And I think the center that Dr. Adebisi has over there is a tangible example of where you can practice, you can learn and practice that entrepreneurial process. And also they need an ecosystem, an entrepreneurship ecosystem that offer them that platform where they can network, they can find mentor, and they can collaborate. Peer-to-peer collaborations can exist. That's really what I think.
Thank you very much, Dr. Doreska. I'm very grateful. Dr. Akanimo, what opportunities does global citizenship present to the African youth? Thank you.
Yeah,
Dr. Akanimo.
Yeah, the opportunities are absolutely endless. I think because, the world has shown to us that we are actually more connected than we actually think. COVID has shown to us the level of connectivity across the world. And for the average African youth, I think it's about understanding your space and what you're able to do. And I think for me, it's also about understanding what you are good at, what comes easy to you. There's a massive disconnect between the average or the inherent ability of an average African youth and what they're trained in school, which is the reason why most people finish a master's degree program or a bachelor's degree program. And actually what they actually want to do, it might be in something totally different. I guess my point is that connection with respect to what you want to do, what you are able to achieve, and what you are able to actually take advantage of within the environment that is already provided. Now, Africa, many data have shown that Africa is undergoing economic renaissance. A continent that's rich in resources and all of that. But the point is, how can the young person position themselves in that environment? Because ultimately, it's about your capacity, what you're able to do, your skills you can develop to actually promote yourself to be able to take advantage of opportunities you have.
Thank you very much, Dr. Akanimo. I'm very grateful. Dr. Joy Kiru, over to you. What are the enterprise quick win opportunities for African youth during and post-COVID-19 era? Thank you. 1 minute.
Thank you. I already said that during my presentation, talked about transient and enduring opportunities. A bit transient are those opportunities which are just the quick wins, which are available right now because of COVID and what it has presented to us. Whereas the long term, those are which are likely to endure. And I think was very elaborate on my presentation. Probably it's not a wise thing to repeat myself again. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Joy Kiru. Dr. Priscilla, what are the sustainable interventions you would suggest for African youths to navigate towards building hopes for the future? Dr. Priscilla?
It appears she's...
Okay, I'll call on Professor Gesh Govinda. What are the salient opportunities for the African youth in the current and future artificial intelligence-driven society?
So I believe there are quite a few opportunities for the African youth in the future, a current and future artificial intelligence-driven society. And one of the ways they can start looking at this is is looking at artificial intelligence student societies, for example. And I think Nilisha Pillai and her students at the University of Pretoria have just set up such a society, and they're doing some really excellent work that is not just theoretical, but is having an actual impact. For example, they're using artificial intelligence to look at automatic thumbnail selection for movies, which of course we all need at the moment while we sit at home. They've also been looking at diagnosis of COVID-19 from chest x-rays, where they've got a 98 to 99% accuracy. So there are great opportunities for the youth, provided the youth work together in a coordinated and consolidated way. Okay.
All right, thank you very much, Professor Kesh. To Dr. Adebisi, how can universities in Africa be better prepared? How can universities in Africa better prepare their faculty members to create entrepreneurial-oriented institutions? Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Shitu. I would say training, retraining, and reorientation of the teachers themselves to be entrepreneurially inclined. There will be need for a bespoke design as all discipline entrepreneurship component discovery plan for the teachers, so that we deploy this to train the teacher themselves in preparation to mentor and guide the student through two key capabilities. Capability number one is acquiring adequate employability skills in the discipline of study that can lead to effective global competitiveness of African graduates in competing for the white-collar jobs now and in the future. Secondly, they must be trained ready for the place of work as a plug-in. Once they finish from the university, teachers must support them. Teachers need to be trained to be able to do this. Teachers too must equally be trained to be able to support the student to have solid entrepreneurial skill in the area of their primary discipline, because this is very important. It is when the teacher himself or herself can understand what entrepreneurial opportunities are available in the area of discipline, that is when they can help the student to be able to acquire this skill. So two important skills that the teachers will have to guide the student to the university to have, which is employability skill and entrepreneurial skills. And teachers cannot do that unless they are trained, retrained, and reorientated.
Thank you very much, Dr. Adebisi. And finally, to Mrs. Tokima Bogunje, in 1 minute, please outline the 5 most important required qualities you think young people need to build sustainable enterprises. Thank you, ma'am.
All right, the number one at the top of the list is passion. The reason why passion is so important is that the passion will enable them to be self-motivated. It will enable them to, challenges will come as you build your business. It will enable them to scale those challenges. It will enable them to look for alternatives to alternative solutions to some of the problems that they face. The second one really is they must have the skill for effective planning. Planning is very important for building any enterprise. They need to have very strong interpersonal skills so they can lead their teams, so they can market their services and their goods. I spoke about lifelong learning, so they must have the willingness to learn. And then finally, one of our speakers spoke about networking. Networking is so important to anyone in entrepreneurship or anyone building a business. Build your networks, build your networks. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Mabogunje. Thank you to all the panelists once again. May I at this time invite the Director, ARUA Center of Unemployment and Skills Development, Dr. Sunday Adebisi, for the closing remarks.
Well, thank you very much. And I want to say that I'm quite excited, and I appreciate all my friends, colleagues, senior colleagues, our private sector that have joined us to ensure that we deliver this this afternoon. Your time is very precious to us, and we know that you've done pretty well. Thank you, everyone. We thank all the people that join us too, all the attendees. Thank you very much for being here. We appreciate all of you. And we want to tell you that we'll be delivering different kind of webinars going forward on the youth, to support the youth, and to create an ecosystem that can build Africa. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
Thank
very
you
much.
all.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye.
We
Have a nice
appreciate
evening.
you all.
Thank you
Bye-bye.
very much. Take care.
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.